So I wanna tell you, cause I'm reacting to why American food is banned in Europe. Obviously, it makes sense that I need to react to this because why? Because I'm European. I'm from Croatia. It's because American food is filled with estrogen hormones that are not even found ever anywhere else than in America. You guys are cooked, but let's actually see what's going on in America. Let us cook. Burger.
McDonald's operates in 118 countries. In the UK, their burger bun has about a dozen ingredients. But in the US, the same bun has over 25. And up until 2016, one of those ingredients was a dough conditioner that's also used to manufacture yoga mats and
Holy
shoes.
shit.
And the CEO of McDonald's just went viral recently, eating one of these burgers on camera, calling it the product the entire time. Not the burger, not the food, the product. And honestly, that might be the most accurate description of American food right now, because there are over 3,000 additives approved in the US.
I mean, obviously, he's a businessman. He sees things this differently than someone that's like a chef in a restaurant. It makes sense. I don't think that's the main issue. But I can see why you would say
that are restricted or banned in other developed countries. And every single one of them got there through a regulatory loophole that was created in 1958 and hasn't been meaningfully updated since. So the question isn't whether these companies can make food without these chemicals. They make cleaner versions of the same products for every other country they sell in. The question is why they choose not to do it here.
It's because it tastes better and Americans don't complain.
Let's forget about the history for a second and just follow a product. Let's say a food company develops a brand new chemical, never been tested, never been reviewed, and they want it in a box of cereal by next month. Okay. Let's call it Compound X. Here's what happens. The company would hire a panel of scientists to review the safety data on Compound X. Many of these scientists have financial ties to the company paying them. And every single time they reach the same conclusion. Compound X is generally recognized as safe, or GRAS. That GRAS label is so important because it's basically a golden ticket. Any ingredient that gets classified as GRAS is completely exempt from the FDA's normal approval process.
What? Wait, what? What did you just say?
AS is completely exempt from the FDA's normal approval process.
Okay.
No safety review, no testing requirements, no.
So the testing is done by the corporate people that are working in a corporation, I guess.
Period.
Okay, that's crazy.
Line.
That is crazy.
What we've seen over time is that companies are creating new ingredients, having their own scientists or hiring outside scientists.
That is classic capitalistic American,
that an
actually.
ingredient is safe. And then once they self-declare that their ingredient is safe, they don't have to go through that pre-market process.
Yeah. The FDA created this designation
in 1958. How is that legal? How is that legal? What?
And it was originally meant to cover things like salt, vinegar, and baking soda. Stuff
I got baking soda!
Because humans had been eating it for centuries. But by the 1990s, the FDA had a problem. You see, as food became more and more industrialized, hundreds of companies were submitting applications to try to get that golden ticket for the new ingredients they were using. And the agency didn't have the budget or the staff to review them all. The backlog was so long that it would take years to clear. So in 1997, under pressure from the Clinton administration's push to cut costs and speed up federal agencies, the FDA made a decision that changed everything.
There was an announcement today by the Food and Drug Administration.
How does Europe do it though?
Has the story.
Instead of requiring companies to submit their safety data for review, they made the whole process voluntary. That means the company doesn't have to submit its determination to the FDA. It doesn't have to share the safety data. It doesn't even have to tell the FDA that Compound X exists.
You guys
it can just start putting it in food and shipping it to stores. Think about that for a second. That's like a student grading their own exam and the teacher saying, you don't even have to show me the test. I'll just take your word for it. And this is
of course the looks like this. Of course they use this example of American
you don't even
school.
Have to show me the test. I'll just take your word for it. And this isn't a hypothetical edge case. According to a 2022 analysis, companies have used the system to self-approve nearly 99% of new food chemicals since the year 2000. The Pew Research Center estimated in 2013 that roughly 1,000 ingredients had entered the food supply through this pathway without the FDA even knowing about them. The FDA's own former deputy commissioner for food admitted in 2014 that we simply do not have the information to vouch for the safety of many of these chemicals. So the system that was designed in 1958 to exempt salt and vinegar from paperwork is now the primary pathway that the entire food industry uses.
So for what is FDA? For what do they do? What the fuck is their purpose if they are not the controlling agency for what can be sold on the market?
To put new chemicals into your food without any oversight. And this is where you start to see why the same food tastes different depending on which country you buy it in.
Makes sense. Kensa USA. All I'm gonna say, Kensa.
Take a mac and cheese from Kraft, for example.
We don't have
For
it in Europe.
decades, the US version
I never tried
got
mac
its
and cheese.
color from something called Yellow 5 and Yellow 6. They are synthetic dyes derived from petroleum. But the UK version used something way healthier. They use paprika extract and beta-carotene, which is an orange pigment naturally found in carrots. Not because Kraft can't make it without the artificial dyes in the UK. It's because in Europe, Yellow 5 and Yellow 6 dyes requires a mandatory warning label that reads, may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children.
Okay.
Rather than putting a warning on the box, Kraft just formulated for the European market. But in the US, no warning is required, so the artificial version stays on the shelf.
'Cause they don't have
Another good
FDA.
example is the
Like,
popular
FDA doesn't
drink
do
Mountain
shit.
Dew. It contains
Okay,
brominated
we don't have this in Europe ever. Like Mountain Dew, I wish to try it. I never in my life tried it. But I maybe heard that it's kind of overrated.
vegetable oil in America, a pretty bad oil for your heart, but not in Europe or Japan because they're banned in those countries.
shit!
Bread products across dozens
We
of
are
American brands
mugging
contain
them
potassium bromate, a dose strengthener banned in Canada, the UK, the EU, China, and Brazil because research linked it to kidney damage and cancer in animal studies. California banned it in 2023, but at the federal level, it's still approved, which means a chemical that most of the developed world considers unsafe is sitting in the bread aisle of grocery stores in 40
You think they give a fuck? They're making money off of you guys. They don't give a fuck about you, bro. Fuck your health.
6 out of 50 American states. None of these companies are being forced to use these ingredients. They're making a financial calculation that using cheaper inputs in the American market
Obviously.
is worth it. Because
them
the
more money.
regulatory system doesn't penalize them for doing so. The US operates on an innocent until proven guilty standard, where an ingredient is assumed safe until enough evidence accumulates
And they
over
make-
years
they
or
make
decades
money
to prove it's harmful.
until it
Europe
gets
uses the
proven that it's
precautionary principle, which flips the logic. If there is uncertainty, a new ingredient doesn't get approved until the manufacturer can scientifically prove it's safe. And America hasn't switched to the
How do they do it in Europe if there's a lot of so maybe that's why in Europe releasing new products is so much slower than in America.
European
Definitely
model
has to be
for
that.
one straightforward reason. Both sides benefit from keeping it the way it is. For the FDA, reviewing every new additives would take years per ingredient and require a budget that they don't have. For the food companies, it's even simpler. Why spend millions on independent safety testing and wait 2 years for FDA approval when you can pay a fraction of that to certify food safety yourself? Back in 2010, when one company was questioned by the FDA about the safety of an ingredient called theobromine, they simply withdrew their voluntary notification, hired an independent contractor to declare it safe anyway, and kept using it. The FDA had no mechanism to
They paid someone to say that it's safe. Classic America. I don't know what the fuck to tell you, bro.
stop them. The agency can't afford to enforce stricter rules, and the industry has no financial reason to follow them. That's how a loophole stays open for almost 7 decades. The GRAS loophole is basically a multi-billion-dollar subsidy for whoever can exploit it most creatively. And the companies exploiting it the best are the ones you've never heard of.
Holy fuck. It's the fruit, yeah, makes sense.
Go to your kitchen right now and pick up the first packaged food you see. Could be a bag of Doritos, a can of Coca-Cola, a cup of yogurt, or a box of Cheerio. Flip it over and look at the ingredient list. Somewhere on there, you are almost guaranteed to see two words.
Natural
flavors. That phrase is doing a lot of work because in most cases, the formulation behind those two words wasn't created by the brand on the front of the box. There are three major firms that engineer the flavors in almost everything Americans eat. The food brands hire them the way a restaurant hires a chef, except these chefs serve 300 million people and nobody knows their name. The biggest is a Swiss company called Givaudan. The second is an American company called IFF, which stands for International Flavors and Fragrances. And the third is another Swiss firm called Firmenich. Together, they control over 55% of a market worth over $40 billion a year. Givaudan alone holds roughly a quarter of the global market and offers over 2,200 different strawberry flavors in its category. Not 22, not 220, over 2,200 variations of a single fruit flavor, each one optimized for a different product and a different consumer base. IFF purchases roughly 8,500 raw materials from 2,300 suppliers worldwide, blending them into proprietary compounds that get licensed to the brands you see on the shelf.
Is that bad though, if they use the raw materials?
One of those formulations is legally classified as a trade secret. So when you read natural flavors on the label, you're looking at a formula that could contain dozens of individual chemical compounds, solvents, and preservatives.
So they lied.
None of which have been disclosed because trade secret law.
Beautiful. Now after this, let me feed my child McDonald's in America.
Overrides ingredient transparency laws in the US. And here's why the secrecy matters so much to them. These formulations aren't just about making food taste good. They're engineered to make you eat more.
Yeah.
Food scientists call it the bliss.
Oh my god.
Food scientists call it the bliss point, the precise combination of sugar, salt, and fat that triggers the strongest craving response without ever making you feel fully satisfied. It's why...
Okay, but let's not forget to put actual accountability to people that are actually obese. Please, do not forget to actually do that.
You can eat an entire bag of chips without feeling full, the same way you would after a home-cooked meal. Your body isn't registering food the same way because the formulation was specifically designed to bypass your satiety signal, the part of your brain that's supposed to tell you, okay, you're full, stop eating. And the bliss point isn't a general target. It's calculated down to the milligram for each individual product.
But how could I know which product is
that? There's a specific concentration of sugar where the craving response peaks. And if you go even slightly above that concentration, the product starts to taste too sweet, and people would eat less of it. So the flavor company aren't just making food taste good, they're finding the exact mathematical ceiling of how much pleasure.
Bro, they need to sell that shit to you, bro. They need to make money off of you, bro. You're a fucking customer. They don't give a fuck about you. They want you to get fat, bro. When you are fat, you are eating more food. Makes sense.
Before it tells you to stop.
You're spending more money when you're fat, bro.
Right below that line. That's why you reach the bottom of the bag and think, I didn't even realize I was still eating. That was the design working as intended. And the reason these companies guard these calculations so aggressively is because getting the bliss point right on a single product can be worth hundreds of millions of dollars in annual sales. Ultra-processed foods built on these formulations now make up nearly 60% of the average American adult's diet. And the number has been climbing up for decades. And studies are now linking high ultra-processed food consumption to increased rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cognitive decline. But the FDA has no regulatory category for ultra-processed. This means the fastest growing segment of the American diet exists in a complete regulatory blind spot. But the good news is that the FDA was directed in 2025 to explore closing the GRAS self.
I wish that he touched more on European food only, also. Not only on American food, bro. Like how they make it.
Of affirmation loophole. But the rulemaking usually takes years, and the food industry will lobby against any changes that increase their costs. And thousands of FDA scientists were fired in April 2025 due to cost-cutting measures. It means the agency now has even fewer resources to enforce the rules it already has. If you want to protect yourself today, here's something you can do the next time you're at the grocery store. Before you put something in your cart, flip it over and count ingredients. If the list has more than 5 ingredients you can't pronounce or wouldn't find in home
Let's
kitchen,
be honest.
just put it back.
You do not have money for that. In this economy, you do not have money for that. You are dying broke. How can you watch what you are eating when you're barely being able to eat in this economy? Paying rent, paying for food, possible.
If natural flavors appear in the first 5 ingredients, the product is more engineered than you think. And
Okay.
if you really want to know whether what you're buying is safe, check if the same product exists in the European version. If the European label is shorter, you know that the American version contains things that
Okay. No one will do it because it's too long,
at
bro.
least one developed
too
country
hard to
decided
do this shit.
weren't worth the risk. I'm curious to know what you think about
I
ultra
d-
processed food, and
I
let me know
think
your
this.
thoughts in the
I
comments.
think you
If
guys are cooked, my
enjoy
boy.
this deep dive on food,
I think you guys are cooked. Hey, keep eating what you're eating. Get more obese and obese. You're not gonna make it until you're not gonna make it to 70 years old. Let's be honest. More movement. Make sure to eat less of this shit here, like donuts, and eat more of green stuff. Eat more of meat. Even meat is probably cooked with hormones, but still, that's the best you can do. I mean, bro, we learned this. We learned this. The difference between America and Europe is this. In America, you have one agency that has to control all other companies, but is not able to do it because of the new rule that a company is able to hire their own investigators, which is crazy. And in Europe, you don't have that. So that's why in Europe, the food is much more regulated. The food is much healthier, and that's it. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Make sure to go to my Twitch, and see you guys in the next video. Peace, my boy.